Speaker of the National Assembly, Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces,
There will now be an opportunity for silent prayer and meditation. You may be seated. Order. Order, honorable members. Honorable members, order. Honorable members, just a reminder, we will not have the kind of disorganization and noise which we had yesterday. And I want to say, particularly from those of my party to the right at the back, please, I plead with you. Now I recognize the Honorable Stace Hazen.
Madam Speaker, in terms of the rules, I would like your indulgence to make a personal statement, if I may.
Yes, Honourable Member.
Madam Speaker, during the course of the debate yesterday, I made a gesture that would probably fall foul of the Rule 52 of the joint rules. I wish to apologise to the member concerned and withdraw unconditionally. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Member. I will now allow the Secretary to read the order of the day.
Reply by the President to debate on the State of the Nation address.
I will now call upon the Honourable President to reply to the debate.
Speaker of the National Assembly, Ms. Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula, the Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Bud Ambi Amos Masondo, Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa, Paul Mashatile, Ministers and Deputy Ministers, leaders of all political parties represented here, premiers of our various provinces, honorable members. I welcome this opportunity to respond and touch on a number of issues to the State of the Nation address and to respond to many issues that were raised during the debate. I want to start off by applauding not only Mr. Steenhuisen, or Honorable Steenhuisen, but a number of other members of this joint sitting for having heeded your rulings, Speaker, and having had the courage and the willingness to apologize when an apology was called for, to withdraw whatever they might have said during the heat of the debate. It is through respecting one another as South Africans and as leaders of our people who represent those people here that we are able to advance the democratic culture in our country. In the State of the Nation address, I said that as South Africans, we have, over the last 3 decades, been on a journey together to achieve a new society. And we've been working arduously together to achieve this. We've been building a new society that's rooted in the equality promised by our Constitution, equality of rights, of fundamental freedoms, and of opportunity. Since attaining our freedom 30 years ago, we have been on what Steve Biko called a quest for true humanity. For us, true humanity means a South Africa that protects and cares for its most vulnerable, a South Africa that guards its hard-won constitutional freedoms, and a South Africa in which every person is able to realize their full potential. In the State of the Nation speech or address, we reflected on the last 30 years because the past does enable us to understand the present, and it inspires the actions we must take to build the future. So we cannot forget the past, even if we wanted to. The past that we've been through as a nation, having gone through colonialism and apartheid over 342 years, has left deep scars in many of our people. And those scars are not going to be washed away or wished away. The past reminds us of the responsibility that freedom has placed on our shoulders to forge ahead, as we have done as this administration, to realize for all South Africans the promise of a better life. The debate in this House over the last 2 days has shown that there are sharp differences among political parties about our past. There are also sharp differences about our present and indeed about our future as well. Now, these differences have no doubt been sharpened by the upcoming elections, whose date is still to be determined. I threw that in to see whether you're still all awake. Yet, amidst all the contributions made in the debate, no speaker has been able to refute a fundamental reality that the lives of millions of South Africans have been transformed over the 30 years of freedom. This is a reality, and as I often say, whether we like it or whether we don't like it, it is the reality that we confront. Die lewens van miljoene Suid-Afrikaners is oor die 30 jaar van vryheid verander. That is the truth. This transformation is evident in the most recent census data, which shows extraordinary improvements on a range of social and economic indicators over the past 3 decades. A number of colleagues have outlined a number of areas in which there has been change. And even as those who spoke in this debate might have differed, but many of us have spoken about the changes, the change we wish, and the change that we would like South Africans to have. This transformation is most evident in the lived experience of our people, who have witnessed the changes in their own communities and who have also witnessed the changes in their own personal lives. But as we embrace the progress that we have made over the last 3 decades, we must also confront the critical issues that need to be addressed today. We need to celebrate the fact that young people, yes, like Tintswalo, have had opportunities that were never available before. But we also need to recognize, as we did in the State of the Nation address, that young people like Tintswalo still have many challenges. Despite everything we have achieved, many South Africans, young and old, are concerned about the state of affairs in our nation, and rightly so. Ten spyte van alles wat ons bereik het, is baie Suid-Afrikaners, oud en jong, bekommerd oor die stand van ons nasie. Baningi ke abantu bakithi, baningi abantu bakithi, yebo bayahlupheka. Baningi abantu bakithi abathanda ukuthi kube nentuthuko la eSouth Africa. Bayathanda ukuthi iSouth Africa lelizwe labo liphumelele phambili. Many people cannot find jobs. Even people with jobs wonder if they will be able to provide for their families as the cost of living increases. Yes, load shedding has had a devastating impact on every aspect of our lives. And yes, corruption as it has unfolded over the number of years has also had a negative impact. Violent crime continues to plague communities across our country. And I have been clear and direct and honest about outlining all the challenges that our people are facing. Many municipalities are struggling to provide the basic services that people need. As we reflect on the journey we have traveled, we must acknowledge the severe challenges that we still face. Now, some who have come to speak here have just spoken about the positives. But I've taken care to also speak about our weaknesses. I've taken care to also speak about our shortcomings, our failings. But I've also taken care to say we must work together to correct what is broken now. That we must do. And in doing so, we must confront our apartheid past, which remains visible as we travel from suburbs to informal settlement, from rich farmlands to poor villages. For the last 5 years, we have worked to get back onto the path towards a better life for all. And as we have done so, We've taken a number of steps forward, and at times there have been steps backwards. And at times we've been at a standstill. Over the last 5 years, we have made significant progress in restoring our economy to growth and to create jobs. When COVID hit, our economy tanked. And just to demonstrate the resilience of our economy, it bounced back, and now it is above the pre-COVID period. We have seen the results of these efforts in the recovery of, yes, our economy and the sustained increase in jobs since the end of COVID-19 pandemic. We have seen the results of these efforts in the growth of our agricultural exports. South Africa now exports roughly half of its agricultural products in value terms. In 2022, South Africa's agricultural exports reached a record 12.8 billion rand, dollars rather, or 247 billion rand. And we are one of those countries on our continent, and we are indeed the top food secure country on our continent. Despite that, there are still people who go to bed hungry. We have seen a massive increase in international tourists coming to our country. And as one goes around, as sometimes I do in the mornings, you come across people who ask, where do you come from? They come from China, they come from Europe, come from other countries on our continent, and they just say, we love Cape Town, we love Johannesburg, we love the Kruger National Park, we love a number of places that we have in our country. We are a well-adorned country when it comes to tourist attraction places. Between January and December last year, our country recorded 8.7 million international tourist arrivals, which was 29% increase on the previous year. Over the last 5 years, we have worked to increase investment in our economy because it is through investment that we can create opportunities for employment and for the growth of new businesses. We've held 5 international investment conferences, which have raised more than 1.5 trillion rand in commitments from investors. And this has been a phenomenal success, and yet we don't want to hear about it or even count it. Of those commitments, more than 560 billion rand has already gone into a diverse and growing range of industries, from cloud computing to mining, from auto parts to paper production, from vaccines and things like insulin to battery assembly, from solar plants to cruise ship terminals. These investment conferences, all of which have been oversubscribed, where would-be investors say, we want to attend, we want to come make commitments. And Minister Patel's department often says, we're oversubscribed, we cannot take you in any longer. And these have shown that South Africa is still an attractive investment destination. And many still see it. Many still see South Africa as the entry point into the rest of our continent. At the same time as we have mobilized investments from established South African as well as international firms, we have worked to build the next generation of companies that will forge a new path of production and employment. And yes, we also need to be proud of the companies that are like Tinswalos, companies that were started around 1994, that are gigantic companies today, that operate in many, many other countries. Our South African pride must go just beyond just looking at things that we can feel and touch. We should also be proud of our companies, some of which have gone global. To enable these companies to get off the ground, we have supported around 1,000 black industrialists over the last 5 years. Now, why did we support them? We supported them because one of our priorities has not only been to grow the economy, but to enable those who were previously disadvantaged, not only disadvantaged, prevented and stopped by convention, by law, by protocol, by racism, to play a key role in the economy of our country. We have taken steps to enable them, yes, to reach for their dreams and to be industrialists, to make things, to manufacture things. And a number of them are already exporting the things that they make. These are they run substantial operations that today employ more than 90,000 workers. Over the last 5 years, we have worked to reverse the decline over several years of investment by both public and private sectors in capital projects in infrastructure. We recognize that there's been a structural problem here with regard to planning, budgeting, funding, and managing projects. We established the Infrastructure Fund to bring together financing from the state, from the private sector, and development banks and other funding institutions. We established Infrastructure South Africa, from which I stole Minister Hossein Tsuramokgopa to bring him to electricity, because he had helped us to establish this structure that was helping us to focus on planning, to focus on project preparedness, to not only help our national departments, but also our provinces, so that we can coordinate massive public infrastructure build. Now, through these efforts, projects worth over 230 billion rand are currently in construction, including in energy, in water infrastructure, and rural roads, as we heard some of the premiers talking about that here. Through capacity support to provinces and municipalities, we are improving their ability to spend the grants that are allocated to infrastructure. We are committed to putting an end to the practice of infrastructure funds being returned to the fiscus unspent. And I've often said there is no greater sin that we as public representatives and servants can do than to return money to the fiscus when money has been allocated for work that should be done. And that has often happened because project preparation, project planning has been a huge challenge to many of those who are supposed to embark on these infrastructure projects. Now, this is a problem across the country, including even here in the Western Cape. In many provinces, money is returned to the fiscus, and I'm saying that must stop. Money must work for what it needs to do. I have always said that infrastructure is the flywheel of our economy. It is through infrastructure that we are able to ensure that there's economic growth, there is employment. After the decline in gross fixed capital formation over a number of years, we are now poised to improve our infrastructure build so that we can reach the levels that were foreseen by the National Development Plan by 2030. The challenge that people in our rural communities have been facing in crossing rivers during the rainy season, as was seen in videos of young children crossing flooded rivers to get to school, has been strengthened by our resolve to speed up the process of building rural bridges. Now, the rural bridges that Minister Zikalala spoke about here are being built as part of the Welisizwe program that allows children to get to school safely. They enable villagers to reach shops, to visit relatives, to reach services, and to transport them more easily. We are on course to complete the 96 bridges that we targeted. And this is where we need to be very proud of how our South African National Defence Force also does real community-oriented projects by building bridges. Access to clean running water is one of the biggest challenges that many of our people face. Wherever one goes through the length and the breadth of the country, you find people who raise the issue of water. Water infrastructure projects we have focused on in the past few years are bringing pipe water to villages that had always relied on streams, rivers, and boreholes. Since the COVID pandemic, we have restored operations on 26 out of 42 or 40 commuter rail lines. We have invested in new rail infrastructure and new trains that are produced here in South Africa, right here. Now, these trains are being built in Ekurhuleni, and I went to the factory to see how they build these trains. And they are built also by women. And they are being rolled out. They are being rolled out throughout the country, and we will soon be exporting some of those trains to many other countries on our continent. Now, this investment is making a huge difference in the lives of ordinary people who rely on public transport while developing the manufacturing capacity that will enable the growth of our train exports. Over the last 5 years, we have been building an economy that is rapidly evolving to meet the demands of the digital society, where the world's leading tech companies are building new undersea cables and data centers. We are a country that is seeking to move in tandem with the technology that is just exploding all over the world. And we know that our economy is going to be driven by digitization, by artificial intelligence, and yes, by the Internet of Things. We see a country in which more people are getting connected and going online, where data costs are dropping and broadband speeds are increasing. And this has happened because we also released the spectrum. There's been a challenge over almost 12 years to have the spectrum released. This administration forged ahead with this project, and we've now released the spectrum, which is going to enable many of our people to get connected. This enables people to conduct their businesses online, not only in their shops or spaza shops or wherever, online, to sell their goods, to sell their services through online platforms. We have seen how this phenomenon has fueled the growth of the economies of a number of countries. For instance, in China, they started off with Alibaba, and now there are many others who are now competing with that. And it should be a source of pride that one of our big companies has invested in a company called Tencent, which has added huge value, not only to the company, which is a South African taxpayer, but also to our stock exchange. We see young people making full use of the opportunities provided by the presidential employment stimulus and other public employment programs to improve their skills and gain valuable experience. And when we saw how the private sector had slowed down in terms of employing more and more people, it was the public sector that moved into the breach through our public employment programs as well as the presidential employment stimulus. And programs are now making a huge difference. And the young people themselves, wherever they go, they're making a big difference, whether it is in the 23,000 schools where they work as school assistants, or in the 1,000 community-based organizations where they are supporting community work in our various communities, whether in food security areas, early childhood development, and many, many others. Today we see a country that is making clear and measurable progress in resolving our electricity crisis that goes back more than 15 years. Maintenance at Eskom plants has improved after a long period where maintenance was ignored. Damaged units have returned to service ahead of schedule. Now, I focus on work that needs to be done to take us forward. Looking back and just stalling on the basis of saying who did it and so who done it and all that is not the answer. The answer is getting the work done now and moving forward. Businesses and households are installing rooftop solar on an unprecedented scale. And this administration has unleashed this energy. We've unleashed it, and it is gaining momentum with the support of incentives and financing mechanisms that were introduced by the government. And we are solving problems. And more than 120 new private energy projects of various sizes are now in development, following the reforms that we implemented. And there are those amongst us who often say, and this comes from all sides, yes, even from our own party, even from elsewhere, they say, but through this, you are weakening Eskom. And I say, no, we are going to make Eskom more competitive. We are going to make Eskom stand up on its toes. And what we are also doing, we are bringing in new investment, because with the debt burden that Eskom is carrying, it would not be able to infuse as much investment as has ensued. For instance, in the Northern Cape, we've had 70 billion rand invested, as Premier Saul was saying yesterday. 70 billion which Eskom would never have had immediately. It is being invested, and it is creating thousands of jobs to a point where Northern Cape now has a 26% unemployment rate. South Africa has been leading in the installation of renewable energy from solar and wind. We have succeeded in attracting international investors through this developing sector. This has been enabled through various actions that have been taken by national government as part of our reform process. The transformation of Eskom with a view to making it more effective, more competitive, is one of the most important reforms introduced by this administration. When completed, it will result in a complete overhaul of our electricity architecture. And in many ways, we will be very much in line with companies that we trade with, companies that have already moved forward to have an architecture of electricity generation as well as transmission that is attuned to the modern times. While there is still much to be done to stabilize our electricity supply, there has been a steady and marked improvement as we move forward. Over the last 5 years, we have made great advances in tackling corruption, including bringing those responsible to justice. We have been rebuilding law enforcement agencies and other anti-corruption bodies because it is only through strong, effective, and independent institutions that we can safeguard against the return to the past. We established the Investigating Directorate in the NPA to undertake prosecution-led investigations of corruption, and will soon make it a permanent structure. We established the SIU Special Tribunal to recover stolen funds and have strengthened coordination between bodies like the Hawks, the SIU, the Financial Intelligence Center, SARS, and the NPA. Now, the SIU has been increasingly effective in uncovering acts of corruption and wrongdoing in the state, and we have put in place mechanisms to ensure that the SIU referrals are implemented. All of this work has helped to turn the tide around. Now, what we have focused on is to improve the system, to make sure that the system is such that it can function on the basis of no interference, on the basis of independence, on the basis of serving the people of South Africa. Now, many of you would like the president to be judge, to be jury, and to be the police. It cannot happen. It must be done by the institutions that are supposed to follow all these matters up. As recommended by the State Capture Commission, we are putting in place laws and institutions and practices that reduce the potential for corruption of any sort and any scale. Over the last 5 years, we've been working together to tackle poverty, to tackle hunger. We have seen the evidence of the impact of social grants on reducing poverty over 30 years. The apartheid system and colonialism bequeathed us poverty and inequality. That is what those past systems bequeathed the people of South Africa. Dispossession of property and assets. The majority of our people do not have assets. They have handed down poverty, suffering, and inequality over generations and generations. Now, through the grant system, we have been able to help reduce the poverty that we inherited from the apartheid system. We have sustained these grants over the last 5 years and have introduced the special grant, the SRD grant, to support around 9 million unemployed people. Now, the special grant was a lifeline to millions of people whose livelihoods were disrupted and destroyed by COVID-19 and who still continue to feel the effects of the pandemic. Not only did the grant help to reduce the incidence of poverty, but some of the people who received this grant started their own businesses. Some of them used the money to find work. And the SRD grant is an investment in our people and forms the foundations of a more permanent income support for the unemployed. That's what it does. We continue to provide free basic services and decent housing. We continue to connect homes with electricity, water, and sanitation. It was a joy to be here in the Western Cape some months ago, walking around with the Premier as we were going to hand over a house near Pau to a woman who had not received a house for a long time. The MEC for Human Settlements or Cooperative Governance said to me, Mr. President, we built this house for 160,000. and we are now giving it to this lady, the beneficiary. And he said, you know, we did evaluation of this house before we handed it over. And the MEC said to me, it is now worth 400,000 rand. Now, this is giving assets to our people. This is what this administration has continued to do over the years, and over 30 years. Whether we like it or not, we have supplied and distributed 4.7 million houses to our people. Now, like me, if you like your calculator, you can do a quick calculation and find out the value of the assets that we have provided poor South Africans with. Yes, real value, having built it for 160,000 here in the Western Cape, then handing over an asset worth more than 400,000. We continue to redistribute land and provide support to emerging farmers. We have been speeding up the handover of housing title deeds, providing poor South Africans with vital assets. And we are building new hospitals, as you heard, and clinics. We are expanding the school feeding scheme, with many schools now offering 2 meals a day and enabling more students to access tertiary institutions. It's always a joy to hear even premiers being proud of the schools that are being built in their provinces. It was a joy to listen, yes, to the Premier of the Western Cape, to the Premier of Eastern Cape, about the schools that are being built. Tell me now that that is not progress. That is progress. We are moving forward. These are not the achievement of decades gone by. This is the work also of the last 5 years. Those who say, what have you done? What have you done in the past 5 years? What is your legacy? What is this and that? Now, talking about legacy, it's not a Ramaphosa legacy. No, it is an ANC-led legacy, government legacy. Now, so you know, I never want to be said that this is a Cyril Ramaphosa legacy. No, it is our people's legacy. Our people have struggled to get to where we are today, and they will continue to struggle. Over the last 5 years, we have strengthened the fight also against crime. In addition to the 20,000 new police recruits. Now, this is the problem that we had to address. Over the years, Minister Bheki Cele had said to me, President, our population has gone up, and our people-to-police ratio has also changed considerably. We've got fewer police men and women looking after a population that is growing and growing. And he'd been saying we need more police. And from a budgetary point of view, I must say, and this I say with also humility, that we had been doing something really wrong, scaling back on the budget for our security sector, the Defence Force and the police, the prisons, the prosecutorial authorities and all that. We've now changed that around. We employ 20,000 police. And all this aimed at enabling our police to be able to do their work. Yes, our provinces, and I must applaud our provinces have also been taking their own steps with their crime wardens, with their panyas, with their whatever. They have been making their own efforts. And we have to say, this is a common problem that we all have to address. We are addressing this problem, and we are coming through with a number of interventions. And we are also establishing specialized South African police service units or task teams, the Economic Infrastructure Task Team, to work with business, to work with private security and state-owned enterprises to tackle illegal mining, construction, site extortion, cable theft, and vandalism of economic infrastructure. And it is only when we work together, it is only when, yes, the construction companies work together with communities, work together with the police, that we will be able to root out site extortions. And if we don't work together, and if, for instance, the construction companies, when they have won a contract, they just parachute themselves into communities and as outsiders believe that they will construct whatever facility, they've got it all wrong. They must work with the local community. They must involve the local community in whatever project they embark upon, so as to prevent those who want to extort from them, so as to prevent this construction mafia from even getting foothold. By November last year, the task teams had made over 4,000 arrests for damage of critical infrastructure, 70 arrests for extortion at construction sites, and over 3,000 arrests for illegal mining, and confiscated significant quantities of copper cable, rail tracks, and other metals. And I heard of a story in Limpopo of a local serious business person who is like in construction industry, how this business person had contracted young boys to go and uproot a whole rail line, take it to his factory and melt it down, and a serious business person. Now, this is the intricacies that get involved in construction, in vandalization of our infrastructure. And this is precisely what the task team has been having to deal with. On all the challenges that our country faces, government, business, labor, and civil society have found a way to join hands and forge partnerships for growth, job creation, and reform. We have forged special social compacts in practice, not theoretical social compacts, compacts that work, that are rooted in what needs to be done. That is what we have been experiencing. We have forged partnerships that enable us to respond to COVID-19 pandemic. We saw that with the vaccine rollout. We saw that with the relief fund that we set up, and how all partners, including members of parliament, contributed to the fund that we set up, which shows how all of us can join in to rebuild our economy. We have worked together on youth unemployment and to tackle gender-based violence and femicide. In recent months, government has worked in partnership with business to address challenges in energy, in transport and logistics, in crime and corruption, as well as in employment and skills. Through this partnership, we have brought together critical resources, critical skills and capabilities to resolve our common challenges. And I found that we work best as South Africans when we join hands, when we approach common problems by working together. We continue to engage with community organizations, unions, business people, experts, and NGOs in undertaking a transition to a low-carbon economy that is inclusive and that is also just. This is particularly important in provinces like Mpumalanga, where the bulk of our coal power stations that are coming to the end of their lives are located. A vital part of this work is in the Presidential Climate Commission, which has been at the forefront, as led by my Deputy Chairperson, Vali Musa, and a number of other commissioners who have been at the forefront of broad social engagement on the path that we must take. With the participation of a range of stakeholders, we've developed a just energy transition investment plan that details the investments we need to make over the next 5 years to support this transition. We are a country with a plan. We are not a country without a plan. We do have a plan to address the issue of the transition. Close to 230 billion rand in international financing pledges have been secured through the Just Energy Transition Partnership. That is leaving aside what local partners will be able to contribute. Last year, we received a number of heads of states who kept coming to our country from a number of countries who came to South Africa to pledge their support to our just energy transition. Once again, South Africa was the first amongst many other nations in the world to come up with an innovative approach to address the challenges of climate change, particularly when it comes to addressing just transition. We are undertaking this transition, as we have often said, at a pace, at a scale, and indeed at a cost that our country can afford, and in a manner that ensures energy security for all our people, while at the same time supporting the creation of new industries, new economic opportunities, and sustainable jobs. And we see this clearly emerging in provinces like the Northern Cape. As we work to build a society in which all may experience a better life, a life of peace, a life of dignity, we will continue, yes, to work for peace on our continent and around the world. We remain deeply concerned about the intolerable situation of the people of Gaza. Earlier this week, we made another urgent request to the International Court of Justice to consider using its power to prevent a further imminent breach of the rights of Palestinians. We did that. As it is now, we are gravely concerned that the unprecedented military offensive against Rafah in Gaza, which is the last refuge for much of Gaza's population, has already led to and will result in further large-scale killings, harm, and destruction. Our call has been taken up by other countries around the world, particularly those who said our case in the International Court of Justice was meritless and it didn't really have any value. Even those countries are now saying and calling on Israel to cease its armed actions against Rafah, in particular on the people of Gaza more generally. They are saying they would like Israel to listen to its friends. Even those who are its friends are saying, please heed our call to stop the onslaught or the assault on Rafah. We remain committed to do everything we can, as is our moral and legal responsibility, to stop acts of genocide in Gaza. And why do we do all this? We do this because we were also subjected as a people. We were subjected to an oppressive system, a killing machine that killed so many of our people, that exiled many of our people, that moved and removed mercilessly many of our people across the country. That experience remains fresh in our memory, and that is why we are acting in support of the people of Palestine. Now, we continue to contribute to peace-building missions and efforts on our continent. We've just deployed personnel from the South African National Defence Force to the Democratic Republic of Congo as part of the SADC mission. Now, because we are part of SADC, as we are part of SADC, we have deployed soldiers to Mozambique. And of course, in a situation of conflict, yes, there are those who will fall. And in any war situation, there are people who fall. Now, as part of SADC, we are part of SADC, and that is why when SADC decided that the region as a whole needs to go and support the people of the DRC, South Africa has also, as always, had to come up and deploy its soldiers there as well. And we have been part of peacekeeping missions all over the world. Now we support our Defence Force personnel who brave great dangers to make Africa a more peaceful and stable continent. That is what we applaud them for, and we dip our heads for those who are injured and those who may well have fallen. A profound change is taking place in our country, and away from the noise and the spectacle, our country is being steadily and fundamentally transformed for the better. Now, as we gather here and as we debate and differ and shout at each other and even hurl insults, especially at myself and also against each other, yes, we know that we are on the campaign trail. And as they say in the classic, die hoogste boom vang die meeste wind. And yes, and I know I will also catch the fiercest wind, but I catch it on behalf of the people of South Africa. That I do. Now, as we debate and differ, and as we prepare for the campaign trail, a quiet revolution is taking place. It is a revolution that will change the way that our economy works and improves the lives of all our people. And we can cite a number of examples in water, in our electricity, all that is continuing to change. And as we look at the many young people in our country, the many Tinswalos, and today I'm really honored to have a number of Tinswalos. Please stand up so that everybody can see you. The Tinswalos who have come to join us. Now, these Tinswalos, a number of them, you may sit down, they've seen you, that you are not fake, that you are real. Now, these Tinswalos are airline pilots, they are engineers, they are police officers, they are naval captains, they are doctors, they are qualified in a number of ways. Some of them are factory workers. Here they are. Now, continuing with the story of Tinswalo, where a number of people have hurled insults at a Tinswalo. Now, we continue with the story of Tinswalo. Now, everyone who would have been born who would have been born after our democracy is a true Tintswalo. Whether they like it or not, they are Tintswalos. Now, the Tintswalo I described, and I missed a number of parts. Of course, you would like to know, who did she fall in love with? How did she get married? I will not get into I know all that. But these Tintswalos were all became the children of Nelson Mandela. They are Nelson Mandela's children. And they also have as an uncle or a father, many of you who are seated here. And she also has a mother. And these Tintswalos, all of them will have received one or other form of child grant. They immediately became children of the state. Many of them went to no-fee schools, as I said. Some of them didn't, but many of them did. And as Tintswalo grew up, yes, she would have gone to a TVET college, and yes, she would have been able to get a job. And as I said, truly and honestly, some of the Tintswalos did not get a job, but they have been touched by the hand of this democratic government. And through the work of this democratic government, they are now grown-up Tintswalos. They are now the group that sits here. Another group sits outside, we know that. Yes, those are the Tintswalos that this government is committed to improving their lives. This government wants to improve their lives because it works on the basis that we should leave no one behind. No child of this democracy must be left behind. And that is precisely what this is doing. So in the State of the Nation address, yes, as I introduced Tintswalo, and I'm glad that Tintswalo has become the talk of not only town, but the talk of the whole nation. With some of them denying they are, but many of them saying, I am Tintswalo, I am Tintswalo. And we are grateful for that. Even Mr. Steenhuisen, also, Honorable Steenhuisen rather, also considered that there is a Tintswalo. So you will find a Tintswalo somewhere. Now, these young people seated over there have spoken not only of how democracy, as ours coming in, has improved their lives, but of their gratitude to those who fought and strived to achieve that democracy. Many have paid tribute to their parents and grandparents and to all the generations that came before for the struggle and sacrifice that brought down the evil apartheid system and ushered in a new era of freedom. And so today, here they sit proudly, these young people who are my Tintswalos. Amongst them, and I want to include some of the disciplines, aeronautical engineers, civil engineers, and all the careers in transport that support, through the support of government, entities and departments. Now we offer our congratulations to another group of Tintswalos, to the South African under-19 cricket team, which reached the semi-finals of the ICC World Cup, an exceptional performance on a global stage. Now, I offer my congratulations to all our teams who are excelling on global stages and who fill us with a great deal of pride Yes, Bafana Bafana, the pride of our nation, arrived back in the country this week after an impressive Africa Cup of Nations campaign. These are all democracy's children. We are proud of them. They are proud of themselves, and they are proud to be South Africans. These are millions more just like them around the country. But there are also those who greeted Tintswalo's story with derision, like right now. These were people who sought to diminish. They even sought to deny the achievements of our democracy. To them, it doesn't matter that 9 out of 10 households now live in formal dwellings, or that a similar number have access to clean drinking water and electricity. To them, it doesn't matter that more South African adults have completed matric or earned a degree, or that more learners from poor communities are achieving bachelor passes. Now, to them, it doesn't matter that South Africans now have a higher life expectancy, or that maternal and child health has improved dramatically, as Premier Saul was saying. Now, it doesn't matter to them that millions of people have been lifted out of poverty through the provision of houses, land, social grants, basic services, expanded access to healthcare and education, and through the introduction of the national minimum wage. Now, I remember very well some parts of this House were opposed even to the introduction of the national minimum wage, which today benefits more than 6 million workers who support their households. All of these great achievements of human development do not matter to them because, in the end, those Tintswalos do not matter to them. They are prepared to dismiss all this progress because it does not serve their narrative of a failed state. It does not serve their political aspirations, and it does not serve their narrow interests. They do not want a national democratic society. They want to preserve racial privilege and to reverse the fundamental social and economic transformation that is taking place. I was truly hurt when I heard a reference from the leader of the opposition, Mr. Steenhuisen, having said that those that he saw in Gauteng, who buy clothes from Jet. I was truly hurt because I am one of those, yes, who believe that a remark like that is inherently racist. Because to refer to people like that and say, yes, those people who go and buy either their shoes or wherever at such and such a shop is degrading, humiliating, and demeaning, and is racist. That's all you can say. But what they do not realize is that Tintswalo's story is not over. We are not done yet with Tintswalo because we are still going to improve Tintswalo's life. Just as our journey as a nation has become better as we move ahead, because we have traveled far and have achieved much, but we have much further to go. We are clear about the progress that we have made. the challenges that we face, and the actions that we must now take. That is why we will continue, as we must, as we have always done, to build a better life for all of democracy's children. In conclusion, I wish to extend my gratitude. I want to extend my gratitude, yes, to all of you, including the leaders of various political parties. Whether what you may well have said was insulting or not, I do forgive you as well. I want to extend my gratitude to the ministers and deputy ministers, and indeed all members of this House, to the Deputy President, to the Director General in the Presidency, for the work and the support in the very hard work, and to all Directors General. I do want to say a special word of thank you to you, Honourable Speaker, and to you, Honourable Chair of the Council of Provinces. I thank you for the work that you continue to do. And yes, to you, Chief Whip of the Majority Party, and all the whips who are here. And I do want to say thank you to all other leaders who found time even to come to this debate. As a nation, we continue to write the story of Tinswalo. Through our collective actions, through our shared determination, we will ensure that all the Tinswalos of this country, together with their parents and grandparents, overcome the many challenges of the present. It is by working together that we will continue to write the story of our free nation and of a future of peace, comfort, and prosperity for all. And thank you very much for all that you said in this debate and for your attendance. I look forward to the various debates that will take place in the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. I take this opportunity to thank the Honorable the President. That, honorable members, concludes the debate on the State of the Nation address and the business for the day. The joint sitting is now adjourned.